Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurtzbacher, and today we'll be talking with a dedicated mom who recognized quickly during the pandemic how harmful being stuck indoors could be to her family's mental health and how nature was the remedy. Lauren with At Your Adventures from Eugene, Oregon is with us. She is a wife and mom to 4 boys that her husband and her had over a 6-year period. In 2020, when COVID hit, she knew right away that her family needed to do something extreme to survive. So they bought a travel trailer and they hitched it to their Ford F-150. And then they hit the road. A few years later, she's able to look back at the places they've been together and the memories that they've created. Lauren believes in the healing power of the outdoors, and she's here to share her family story with us today. Lauren, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, I am so excited to share this story. You guys have taken a number of epic trips to places that are on my bucket list, and I can't wait to share some of those and learn from you today. I know that after we talk, I'm going to be probably making some plans of my own. But Lauren, you've been an active outdoor family your whole life, but the pandemic hit. And you had this like early recognition that you could not just stay inside. The stay-at-home orders weren't going to work for you guys. And you had to get outdoors. Can we just jump right in and tell us what happened with you guys?
So in 2020, we bought a trailer. Neither of us had towing experience at all. My husband grew up on a farm. So, he had some equipment, driving stuff, but like nothing like what it would take to tow a trailer across country. But since my husband's job and the boys' school was all remote and planned to stay remote into 2021, we realized we had a golden opportunity because my husband's job, he's like, how remote is remote? Because I can go remote. And they're like, as long as you have internet signal, we don't care where you are right now. So the furthest we had ever driven just in a minivan was to Western Colorado. So we planned this epic road trip and we just set off across the country with our little 21-foot trailer, which is not very big for 6 people. We hit all 48 of the continental states over a combined total of about 5 months. We would come home long enough for me to work at the hospital and get my hours in, and then we would hit the road again.
Man, it's amazing. All 48 states in 5 months.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man. And then I also, so you said a 21-foot trailer, and we had fun talking about this beforehand, but an F-150 pulling this 21-foot trailer, did it do the job?
It was a little struggle in a few places. We were going through the Tetons, and I was watching the temperature rise up on the transmission. So a little trick for that is you turn on your heat. And so it'll blow heat out and it'll suck that heat off of your engine and then roast you all inside the cab. So it's like windows down with them trying to point out. That was real fun. And then we had that happen again. We were in Colorado and we got stuck on the interstate for a car accident. And it was like 90 degrees. And the transmission, again, on this big hill going through the Rocky Mountains, started overheating. But we were only able to go like 10 miles an hour. So it was hot. We had no way to cool us off that. So in hindsight, had we known when we bought a truck that we were going to get a trailer in a couple of years, we would have got something with a bit beefier engine. But, that little truck has gotten us everywhere.
The little engine that could. And I feel like so much of your story too is about like making do with what you have.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. We're not a wealthy family, we make do and we save up for stuff and it's still working. Like I haven't had air conditioning in my minivan for 3 years, which, in Oregon's not that big of a deal. We get maybe 2 months of the year where it's really annoying, but you use it up and make it work until it completely wears out.
Yeah. So using what you have, I want to come back to that. You're from Eugene, Oregon, beautiful place. Tell us a little bit about like just your experience in nature and kind of where you all like before you kind of went and did this epic trip. Talk a little bit about like your sort of adventuring experience leading up to 2020.
Well, I'm a biased, of course, but I think Oregon is one of the best places for outdoor adventures. We live an hour from the coast. We are 2 hours from the Cascade Mountain Range. There's big peaks there, alpine lakes. We have the high desert area of Eastern Oregon. There's canyons over there, not like Grand Canyon canyons, but there's beautiful canyons over on the eastern side of the state. You've got a lot of hidden gems in the eastern side of the state because most people, when they come, they're just visiting the western side. But you've got the Steens Mountains, there's hot springs out there. It's gorgeous. And we love camping and hiking in Oregon.
Yeah. So talk. You've got four boys that came along all within a span of 6 years. What was it like trying to adventure while raising them?
Um, I think people saw us pull into the campground and were like, oh no. Because it's a lot of little kids. So we had a big 10-man Coleman tent that we had gotten from Walmart, and it was big enough that we could put a pack and play in there. So we would pull out our pack and play. We would have one kid like strapped down into a little portable high chair so that they couldn't run off. Um, it was a lot of work, but honestly, like I'm so glad we did it. It
Mm.
was so fun. The memories we had really outweighs the trials of getting him out there. Even in times where it's Oregon, it rains a lot. And we had multiple camp trips where we're like, nope, too rainy, or oh, this tent is getting old, it's flooded. We just pack up and go home and adventure on another day.
Yeah. So, mostly car camping leading up to 2020.
Yeah. Yep. We didn't have any trailers or anything, car camping. And then once we got our truck, which we got that in like 2018 or something, we would
Yeah.
just camp in our truck. We would
Yeah.
sleep. Some of us would sleep in the bed of the truck. And I have pictures of one kid laid across the bench seat, one kid laid across the floor below the bench seat, and another kid on the front bench seat. And that's how, with a just whole bunch of blankets from off their beds at home. And that's how we camped. We had some hammocks too. We would find one lone tree out in the desert and we would tie off one end of the hammock to that tree and the other to the hitch on the truck or to the edge of the truck. And my husband would sleep in the hammock and we would just be out there.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and really using what you have, and it's like the simple living, and that's kind of what it's not. It doesn't have to be about like going to REI and spending thousands and thousands of dollars on gear. Although that's a lot of fun,
Yes.
but you don't have to.
No, you don't.
Yeah. Okay. So 2020 comes along, and it seems like you almost had this sort of like intuition. Can you kind of walk us through like some of that thought process, like especially around like buying a travel trailer? Like, how did that all happen so quickly?
So our travel journey kind of had its origins in 2019. And at that point, we
Okay.
hit what will hopefully be kind of the lowest point in our family. We have
Okay.
neurodivergency in our family with some official diagnoses like autism and expressive receptive communication disorder, and some unofficial, but definitely there, issues like sensory processing. And raising kids with special needs is hard. And in 2019, we were undergoing some really, in the interest of keeping my kids' privacy,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell all their story here, but just know things were really, really hard for
Uh-huh.
us. And we decided that we needed some professional help.
Mhm.
We got my son in with a therapist that also just happened to offer childcare to siblings while the session was going on. And within 2 weeks, they're like, you know, we think your other son could benefit from therapy too. And then they gently and kindly suggested that I might benefit from having some therapy. And oh my gosh, that was life changing. We went every week. And literally, I am not joking when I said it changed our lives and maybe saved our family. I had been blaming myself, that little
Yeah.
shoulder devil was,
Yeah.
speaking the words in my mind that everything was my fault. It was my fault. I was a bad mom, and that's why my kids were struggling. If you were just better, if you just did more, if you tried harder, your kids wouldn't be struggling like that. And it took 6 months of therapy to change that mindset, to be able to talk to a professional, to help give me some different coping mechanisms, and honestly, just to be able to talk to someone freely.
Mm,
I wasn't telling anyone that all of this was going on. I was ashamed of it because, again, I thought it was my fault. So no one knew what was going on. I wasn't even like telling my parents. And I have a really great relationship with my parents. And
yeah.
I wasn't even telling them what was going on because, again, I internalized all of this. And I thought, it was just my fault. So being able to speak to someone who I didn't feel like I was going to burden them with my problems, like I didn't want to tell anyone because I didn't want them to feel bad and feel like
Yeah.
they had to do this stuff to fix it for me.
Yeah.
So, highly recommend therapy. It really helped. So, my sons continued after I was done, and we were still doing therapy in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And then, of course, as you can imagine, in person therapy stopped.
Yes.
We tried to do it over Zoom, but that was not working at all. And anyone who has autistic kids will know when I say that change in routine is hard,
Yeah.
putting it lightly.
Yeah.
Change is very hard. So everything shut down in Oregon. The playgrounds were wrapped in caution tape to physically prevent kids from going on playgrounds. Trailheads, any trailhead near a city was physically blocked off. So you couldn't get outside anywhere. It about broke my heart one day. We drove over to the coast because I just needed a break. I was really not having a great time. And they had barricades for all of the pullouts along the coast because they didn't want people coming over. And I see that. I
Yep.
get it. I understand why they did that. I'm not saying that was wrong or anything. But for me, like it just was pushing me even further
Yeah.
down into this like not great mental
Yeah.
headspace. So, we gathered up all of our camping gear and we threw it in our truck and we drove over to Central Oregon, where there's lots of dispersed camping areas where you can just drive out on a Forest Service road and you're allowed to camp out there. Following the practices of leave no trace, we had our own toilet with us. We brought in our own water.
Yep.
So, we were able to survive on our own out there. And in a 2.5 month period, we spent 30 days out in just the wilds of Central Oregon, not another person in sight. And we would hike out there. And I got this idea. It's like, it'd be really cool if we could hike 100 miles this year. And I found as we fully immersed ourselves in nature and exploring new places, we were growing closer together as a family. For years, we had spent so much time apart between school and jobs. And looking back on it now, the pandemic actually gave us a wonderful gift of
Yeah.
a year and a half of being together 24/7, and especially for my boys with their dad. I just work part time, so I am home the majority of the week. But, their dad had a regular 9 to 5 job. And so he was gone so much from their lives. And then as we grew in our hiking skills, I watched my boys get stronger and more confident in their abilities, and the behavior issues that we had were beginning to lessen. Uh, we had this family motto of "we can do hard things,"
Yeah.
and that translated into so much more than hiking. And I fully believe that being out in nature almost consistently for 2020 and 2021 changed our lives for the better.
This story is like it's brilliant. It really is. I mean, it's so interesting. I have like so many different questions, like, and I really appreciate all the sharing about 2019 and then rolling into 2020. Like it seems like the way you described it, that the pandemic was really a gift to your family.
It was, and even now it continues to be a gift because, my husband's job, he they realize that, work can still be done remotely and work can get done. So while we can't take off for 10 weeks at a time now, like what we did before, he works for, with school system stuff. So when the kids have a break from school, then we're able to work remotely. So every spring break, we take a trip somewhere and he can work remotely during that time. And then in the summer, he's able to take quite a bit of time to work remotely. So,
Yeah.
we still have to, he has to get in his office time now. He does have a different position that doesn't offer as much flexibility,
Yeah.
but still, like, that was never even an option. To work remote was never an option before 2020. It was, if you're in a job, you're in the building.
Yeah. But for you, it's so like, you guys went through this really amazing experience with therapy and the healing that came through and it was working for you guys. And then all of a sudden, like door got shut, like, nope, you can't do this anymore. And like you knew right away. And you guys went off and started doing adventures to basically create your own therapy. I guess I'm curious, like, do you ever kind of reflect back like what might have happened if the pandemic hadn't hit?
Oh, yeah, our lives would be completely different because the school shutting down also is what started our homeschooling journey
Mhm.
with our older two kiddos that were having more of a struggle. Um, Man, I don't know if, like, we had continued to keep them in public school and the challenges that they face there, like, they could have ended up with a lot more mental health struggles themselves versus that led us into this homeschooling journey, and they are thriving and doing so much better, and the community that we have found through the homeschooling and the support that they're getting through that now, and they enjoy it versus before. They're like, I mean, my one son, he was really struggling with school before the pandemic hit, and we were trying to like, what can we do? What can we do? But I didn't want to homeschool. That was never, a dream of mine. I was so excited because for the first time in like 10 years, I was going to have some alone time maybe during the week.
Yeah.
And then it stopped.
Yeah. I want to get into some of the adventures themselves, but I feel like we're on such a roll here. Could you talk a little bit about like some of the transformation that you saw in your kids from your adventure experiences?
Yeah, that has been pretty amazing to watch. Our relationships are so much better since we started spending all of this time together. You would think, like, I had one son, like, he and I butted heads so bad. And you would think, like, us being stuck together 24/7 would make that worse. It's better. Our relationship has gotten better. And I think it's because we were able to spend so much like one on one time with them. Um, Watching their endurance grow from all of this outside time has been amazing. We went from having a 4-mile hike be really difficult to we're planning a 20-mile day trip hike along the Mackenzie River Trail. And like I know my older ones can do that. Like there's not even a question in my mind, are we going to be able to do this 20-mile hike? Like I know my kids can do it. I had one son who was very afraid of heights, and I watched him conquer the Beehive Trail in Acadia National Park. And that's one of those iron rung trails where you are literally like climbing on iron rungs up cliff sides with
Ooh,
like
that
big
sounds awesome.
drops beneath you. Oh,
Yeah.
I love stuff like that
Yeah,
so much.
I've been to Acadia, but I don't remember that trail. I might have to go back. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so just to watch them grow into confident young men has been amazing. Now, that's not to say we still don't have struggles. We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that all this time we have spent overcoming physically and mentally challenging hikes will translate for them into taking on harder stuff in life, that they won't be afraid of trying hard things later because they already know
Yeah.
they can do hard things.
Yeah. Okay. Help me paint a picture because, 21 feet, I don't know, maybe people don't have context. I've done a couple of our RV trips and we've rented 20, I can't remember if they were 25 or 28 foot, like drive, like, true RVs that you drive.
Uh-huh.
And I had, myself and my two young little girls, like I can't, and that was tight. I can't imagine like two adults and four boys, 21 feet, like paint a picture. What does 21 feet get you?
All right. So in our little trailer, since there were six of us, we specifically chose a trailer with a Murphy bed. So
Okay.
the RV queen size bed that my husband and I sleep on, that folds up during the day into like a couch
Yeah.
area. So you've got a little couch and then you've got a little dinette. And then the back of the trailer, half of it is like a bathroom shower, and the other half is a set of full size bunk beds. And you could like me, I could stand on probably touching one wall. hold hands with my husband, and he could touch the bathroom door. So for visual reference, that's how tight it is in there. And all four boys just they but they've always been that way. We have a
Yeah.
running joke when they were little that it was like a little pile of puppies, because even though we have plenty of bedrooms and plenty of beds, but they would all like sleep in one bed together, just like a little pile of puppies all in there. If like from Willy Wonka, when the grandparents are sleeping, two on one and two
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the other, like
totally.
my boys would totally absolutely do that in the bed that they would all choose to sleep in together. So luckily, with them being close in age and everything, it's snug, but it's
Did
fine.
did you guys have a tent as well to accompany the trailer, or was everybody always sleeping in the trailer?
We always sleep in the trailer together. We did buy a clam, one of those pop-up instant canopies that we will bring when we're going to be staying in places we know for multiple nights that it's worth
Okay.
setting it all up. And that does give us some extra outside space so we can set up some chairs. We have a little folding table we put in there. So it kind of gives us another room to have during the day that's free. Like we especially use that in Florida,
Yeah.
because we knew with all the bugs and everything down there that we wanted to have another outside space where the kids wouldn't be eaten alive by the little critters.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you guys remember like the day or the moment that you made the decision to buy the trailer, and like do you remember the feelings associated with actually like buying the trailer?
Yeah, it was funny because getting a trailer was always something we said that we would do when we were old and
Yeah.
didn't want to sleep on the ground anymore. So that was like a retirement thing
Yeah.
for us of getting a trailer. And then all of a sudden it was researching everything. And we researched for probably about a month,
Yeah.
which is not a long time for making that big of a trailer.
Sure.
I mean, that big of a decision.
Yeah, yeah.
So um, it was very fast, but also at the same time, we kind of had to go fast because I don't know if you remember or not, but like everyone was buying trailers
Mm.
because so many people were going to remote work and everyone had the same idea as us. Like, well, if we can go remote, let's go travel and do stuff. So it was kind of like scrambling on what could we even find in our area. And once we found it, it's like, we need to get this before the prices go up even more because the demand is so high.
Do you remember like bringing it home? Like, were you kicking yourself?
Oh no, I was so excited. So excited. I couldn't wait. Like that was a dream of mine. Like even after doing all this, like I could totally be a person who lives the nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah.
Other members of my family are like, is it time? Is it time to go
Yeah.
home? Yet I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
But for me, like, oh my gosh, I could absolutely live on the road.
Do you still have the trailer?
Yep, we do.
Does the trailer have a name?
Yes, so it's a Grand Design Imagine, and, like, Imagine is written really big over the front, so we call her Imogene because
Imogene. Awesome.
Imogene. Yep,
Okay.
so we've got Imogene that we haul
Imogene.
behind us.
Love it. Imogene from Eugene.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. All right. So take us on the journey. What like you 5 months, all 48 states. What were some of the highlights?
Oh, we get asked this question all the time, like, "What were your favorite places?" And it's so hard to answer because there's so many. So some highlights probably would be so we visited all the national not all, but we visited a good chunk of the national parks. That was like the background and basis for our trip. And then we spent the majority of our time actually on the East Coast because we knew with this limited time we had, it'd be really hard to get back out there again. So that 10 weeks that we spent just in one trip, that was just the eastern half of the country.
Can I
So
can I
we
pause you for a second for all of my East Coast friends, because I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina on the East Coast. I grew up on the East Coast. Like there's so much here, but like when I think about adventure, it's always like I want to go out west. So I want all of my East Coast friends to listen closely because you're going to talk about all of the cool stuff you saw on the East Coast that we have right here in our backyards.
Yes. We fell in love with like the Smoky Mountains.
Mhm.
So Eastern Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky, so much so that um, we kind of just had a sampling on that first big 10-week road trip. We were trying to see it all. So just like little snippets of things here and there. And we went through kind of that Red River Gorge area of
Mhm.
Kentucky when we were heading to like Great Smoky Mountain National Park, Mammoth Caves. And I was like, "Oh, I love this area." And we went back the next year as our next East Coast. Well, we didn't go all the way. We just we came as far. We hit like the well, sadly, with all the hurricane stuff, we were in
Yeah.
that western
Yep.
North Carolina
Yep.
area.
Yep.
And I knew we had to come back. So Red River Gorge area was amazing. I loved Shenandoah National
Mhm.
Park. That was gorgeous. Up into like around Acadia. That was beautiful. Watkins Glen State Park. That was a social media thing. I had seen pictures of it and I'm like, I want to go there someday. And so I made sure when we planned the trip. Luckily, my husband is a go with the flow kind of guy. He's the youngest in a very large family. So he's had to go with other people's agendas his whole life. So he goes along with my agendas and is amazing. So we saw Watkins Glen State Park. We loved seeing all of the history with our own homeschooling program. We had been studying the American Revolution.
Okay.
So going around and seeing all these places that we had been learning about was amazing. One of my cherished memories. So they loved all the music from Hamilton, of course. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
So we were driving through the Yorktown, like battle site areas, blasting the
Oh my
Battle of
gosh, how
Yorktown
fun.
soundtrack. And I'm like, this is where it happened,
I love that.
guys.
That's awesome.
And it was just so cool to like bring this history to life, to see all of this stuff in person. Um, yeah. Oh my gosh. I just want to go back. I want to travel more. There's still so much more. My
Yeah,
travel list has done nothing but get longer
that's
since
what
we started
happens.
traveling because
Totally.
you drive by an area and it's like, I didn't even know that was there. Like Oklahoma. Like there's like I found out later, there's all this stuff in Oklahoma. Like I had no idea. We just drove through Oklahoma. Like I didn't see any of this stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much,
You
and I want to go
when
back.
when we spoke the first time, you talked about driving from Florida up to Maine. Like, tell us about some of the highlights along that road.
Well, Florida itself was amazing for my poor little Pacific Northwest boys who I don't even let them go swimming in the ocean because it's relatively dangerous. Just being in warm water and like having dolphins swim by us, seeing sea turtles. That was amazing. So we drove all the way down to Key West. Like we
Cool.
we we literally did that entire eastern
That's
seaboard
about
as
as far
far
as
as
you can get from Oregon to Key West. That's about as far as you can get.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. That was amazing, and then making our way up again, we try to do a mix of hitting cities for historical stuff, so
Mhm.
Savannah, Charleston, and then the national parks, Congaree, Shenandoah, up to Acadia. We hit New River Gorge in West Virginia. Um, it was amazing. It was so much fun, but definitely some learning curves, about towing trailers in big cities. And I
Yeah.
actually do most of the driving. So again, with my husband working remotely, he has a setup in the back seat with his laptop and an additional monitor. And so he is sitting in the back, like working and having Zoom calls and everything. And I'm doing the majority of the driving on this trip. So I have driven my trailer in crazy places. And that was, I mean, again, a girl who had never driven, no, I had never towed a single thing in my life. And here I am, like, okay, Washington, D.C. during rush hour. Here we go.
Love it. Well, I'm just curious, what did you guys use for internet?
We had Verizon is
Cool.
our carrier. So we got data plans for both of our phones for
Got
like
it.
mobile hotspot sharing. And then we also got an additional like MiFi. And so we used Verizon. And honestly, we had great, I mean, Starlink. Yeah, when we started, it was like just starting to kind of
Yeah,
hear whispers of Starlink.
right.
But again, like it wasn't in our budget to get something like that. So we made do.
All right, so back to Lauren driving a Ford F-150 with a 21-foot trailer. Did you have any you said you visited some cities. Did you have any city experiences?
Oh, yes. Yeah. New York City with a trailer. Oh my
Let's go.
gosh.
Tell me about this.
All right. So we were coming from kind of the Southwest.
Yeah.
And so we got into, there's actually, if you know, there's an RV park in New Jersey where you can see the Statue of Liberty. That's how close it is. Like that's how in the middle of I don't know if you call it downtown. I don't
Yeah.
know. But anyway, You could see the Statue of Liberty from the RV park, and getting into there, just fine. I mean, you had lots of people like cutting you off and people honking at me, and they weren't as nice of drivers as they were in the South. But, honestly, I was probably making them all mad with my huge trailer that they couldn't see around anyway. So we made it in to the parking area just fine. We did 2 days of just walking 20 zillion miles all around, seeing all the sights of New York City. And then our place afterwards was we were headed towards like Connecticut, Rhode
Yep.
Island, Boston. Like our end goal was getting to Wampatuck State Park in Massachusetts so we could visit Boston. And I didn't do it. We planned this trip. We like decided to go in December and we left in April. So we didn't have a ton of time. And I was
Yep.
working a ton of hours at the hospital. It was still, COVID was going very strong. So I didn't have a ton of time to really pre-plan a lot of this trip. And so we were getting ready to leave. Like, okay, what's the route to get there? And I'm like, oh, we can't fit through a lot of these places. Like, we're not allowed to drive on this bridge. We don't fit through that tunnel. And so the only bridge that we could go, I don't know the name of it, but there's one bridge that we could go across. The toll was $56, which like my jaw dropped because we don't even have toll roads out
Yeah.
where I live. So that was a shocker. And then again, brand new to this, we didn't realize that on the East Coast, there's so much like parkways that aren't
Yep.
for oversized vehicles.
Yeah.
And our dang Apple maps kept routing us onto parkways.
Yeah.
And we know now, like, there's like RV Garmin's and like trucking GPS things that we should have been using, but we didn't. And we had so many. Oh my gosh, the scene in The Incredibles where they're landing the RV on the, it's like, we're not going to make it. We're going to make it. We're not going to make it. We're going to make it. Like that was our experience driving through New York and trying to get off of these parkways that it kept routing us onto. Oh, it was like, if our marriage can survive that, then like that's a testament to how
Yeah.
strong our marriage is because we survived driving our trailer
I love it.
through New York.
What's the teaching moment there for people listening?
If you're going to be towing a trailer on the East Coast, invest in an RV Garmin because we found out that in a lot of places, like we had to like stop and like back up, reroute a few times because it took us on a bridge that we would not fit under.
Yeah, that's amazing. Lauren, I'm curious if I were to ask your boys what their favorite part of the trip was, or the trips, because you took multiple trips
Mhm.
over a period of a couple of years, but like if I were to ask them what their favorite part, what do you think they would say?
Well, funny you should ask that. So when we were ready to do our second big road trip, we asked our boys to pick out where they wanted to go. And pretty much like the whole country was open to them on where they wanted to go. Do you know what their number one thing was? Dollywood.
Yeah. Okay.
Dollywood.
Pigeon
That's
Forge, North
I know.
Carolina.
Yep. So
Love
because
it.
we had gone through that area. We had actually stayed right outside of Gatlinburg when
Yep.
we visited the Smoky Mountains, and they saw Dollywood. But like again, I didn't really know about this when we were planning stuff, so we didn't schedule any time, and so we
Yeah.
couldn't see it. And it ended up being cruddy weather when we went there, so it worked out for the best.
Yeah.
But they were like, "Why are we here with a theme park right here, and we don't get to go?" So in 22, when we planned our next big East Coast or cross country road trip, they picked Dollywood as their number one place to go to. And then the next on that list was the Georgia Aquarium in
Okay.
Atlanta. I've
Okay.
got one son in particular, kind of with his fascination with his neurodivergence is he loves aquariums. So I'd already taken him on a trip to the Monterey Bay Aquarium and he knew about the Georgia Aquarium with the whale sharks. So that was a huge highlight for them. And then they loved Florida because, again, of the warm ocean
Yeah.
water and just being able to play in that water. And it was just so different than what we
Yeah.
have here.
Very different. Yeah. So, obviously we focused a lot on the East Coast, but you guys have done a lot of West Coast travel as well. And there's a couple of things that are on my personal bucket list. And I feel like if, if I'm interested, I'm sure other people are as well. And you've actually done a couple of these things. So I'd love to hit a couple of the ones that I'm super excited about, namely Half Dome in Yosemite. You guys climbed you did the cable climbs. I'd love to hear about that.
Yes, that was our let's see, that was in 2022. So me and my oldest son and one of my best friends, we traveled down to Yosemite to do Half Dome. I put in for a permit, not thinking, it's like a 25% success rate
Mhm.
for those
Yeah.
permits. And I was like, meh, we'll try for it. The odds are not great in our favor, but let's give this a try. It looks like a really fun adventure to do. And we got it on our first try, which makes us
Amazing.
extra lucky. Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. And the fact that when we got down there, we actually had good enough weather to do it because, as you know, tragedy, what happened earlier this year, like it can really,
Right.
if you make a mistake on that one or just bad weather conditions, it can kill you.
Right.
So we were very lucky that one, we got the permits, and two, the time that we were assigned to go, we had beautiful, gorgeous, the most absolute perfect weather, not a cloud in the sky, that we could confidently take the hike and make that climb up there without any risks of, those summer afternoon thunderstorms and things like that that tend to blow through the mountains.
Yeah, Lauren, for people that aren't like familiar, can you describe what hiking Half Dome and doing the cables means? What does that help us create that visual?
So it is a bucket list hike for
Yeah.
many people.
Me.
Yeah, it was for me too. Though I didn't know this before I started all this stuff. I didn't know that that was on my bucket list. But then as I found out all these areas, it's like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
do that. I want to do that. Social media is terrible for my to do list because it just gets bigger because I see all the other people doing stuff. Um, so it is it's amazing because it's in such a beautiful area. Those views from the top are unlike views I have seen anywhere else. You're
Yeah.
just surrounded by all of those beautiful mountains, and we have a lot of sharp mountains here in the Cascade Range because they're younger. All of like the dormant volcano stuff we have here. But down there in Yosemite with those eastern Sierras, they're they're more rounded and there's more of them. It's like the whole area, as far as I could see, were these beautiful gray, kind of rounded cliffs, and you got the blue sky. Then you've got all the beautiful evergreen trees that are down below you, these pockets, these valleys below you, the water. It is stunning. I have not come across, even though I've done more hiking in the Eastern Sierras, I have yet to see a view that was as stunning as from the top of Half Dome.
Mm. So what does it take to get there? How do you get to the top of Half Dome?
So it is a long hike. There are options to get backcountry camping permits. And honestly, if I were to do it again, that's the only way I would do it because without it, it was about 18 miles for us from where we had to park. And then it's like 5,000 feet of elevation gain. So it was a very long hike to do as a day hike. And it's almost as impossible to get camping permits in the valley as it is to get the permit for Half Dome. And we weren't successful getting a camping permit down in the valley. So we were staying still in the national park, but like an hour away.
Mhm.
So we had to get up extra early. We had to drive for an hour, find a parking spot, and then you have to do it was like a almost like 2 miles, I think, just to get to the trailhead to
Mm.
begin the trail to just start going up and up. And you start on the Mist Trail, which is, if you ever go to Yosemite, do the Mist Trail to stand up by those amazing waterfalls and have that water pounding over you. And we were there in June, so it's pretty decent flow, but it definitely can get higher. Um, just that trail itself is amazing, and then you just keep going up and up and up, and it's not a nice trail either. It is a very rocky trail, so you wanna have things like really good shoes, good support. I had trekking poles, which I was very thankful for, because it is not an easy stroll. It is up and up and up, and then there's a section called the Subdome, which is right beneath Half Dome, and that's where the ranger's at to check your permit to make sure you have it. There are ways to piggyback off of permits. You get a lot of people who can't go at the last minute. We were actually supposed to go with a fourth person, and they weren't able to go. So there's a group of people waiting at the Subdome for people like me that maybe had an extra spot on their
Oh, wow.
permits.
Wow, cool.
And so we were able to give one of our spots to one of these people that were waiting. So that is a
That's so
way. It's a
interesting.
gamble, but it is a way to piggyback on someone else's permit because it's not by name. It's just, I have 4 permits, so
Got
4
it.
people can
Got it.
go on this, as
Got it.
long as the trip leader is there. Your trip leader has to be there, show ID, things like that. And then it is the essentially stairs going up the half dome, and that has gorgeous views. And then you kind of come downhill of the half dome, and the cables are in front of you. And that's when you like look up and up and up, and it's like, oh, oh, that's what I'm going up. It
Yeah.
is like in some places it's probably like a get the camera there. It's probably in some places about an angle like that,
Yeah.
and they've got these wooden slats that aren't like in like a stepping like step from one wooden slat to the next. It's some of there may be like 4 or 5 feet in between the wooden slats. So you kind of you get on one and you get yourself ready, and then you kind of take like a couple big steps holding on to the chains, and you get up to the next slot, and then it's like, okay, all right, take a breath, all right. And then you wait for 20 zillion people to go past you because everyone's trying to go up and down on the same little. I mean, there's about as much space for me for like two people shoulder to shoulder to pass each other
Yeah.
on the cables. And it's slippery because they've been doing this same route for decades, and it's granite. So it is not a lot of traction. Thing I recommend to people is I wish I would have had grippier soled shoes. The shoes I had, my hiking boots, my Columbias that I have hiked hundreds of miles in, was great for the trail because that good thick stiff sole really like helped protect my feet on that rocky trail. But that was not the right shoe to wear. As I realized coming down, going up was not a problem. I had no issues going up at all. It was fine. But coming down was the scariest thing I have ever done in my
Mm.
life because I felt like, and my feet were slipping as I was coming down. And I just remember thinking, like, everyone's gonna be so mad at me if I fall and die on this.
Yeah.
My mom will be so mad at
Yeah.
me.
Did you have to wear gloves? Did you have like the death grip on
I
the
did.
cable? Yeah.
Yep, I had gardening gloves, so, like, rubber sole gardening brand new rubber sole gardening gloves, and so I had a good I wasn't gonna actually I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't say that because people have, and I'm
Yeah.
sure they probably had the same, like, I've got a good grip, I'm not gonna fall.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not something to be undertaken lightly, and it took me a long time to get down because my legs started shaking,
Mhm.
and so it took me my friend and my son went down before me because, my son being the fearless, he was 13 at the time. And him being the fearless child that he is, he was like, "Doo, doo, doo, doo. I'm
Yeah.
down. It's all good. I'll just wait for you at the bottom, mom." And it took me a lot longer to get down because, oh, I was so scared. It
Yeah.
was
But you
scary.
did it. You
I
did it.
did.
So that's
I
it's an
did.
18-mile climb. I mean, the thing takes all day. You start
Mhm.
first thing in the morning. The cables occupy how much time?
It was probably 15 minutes getting up, and then I actually, like, had to lay down because I felt like I was gonna throw up when I got up to the top, just, like, the adrenaline of it,
Yeah.
and I was tired.
Yeah.
It's not like I hiked, 9 miles with 5,000 feet of elevation gain in my everyday life, like, I'm in shape, but I'm not that in shape. So I got up to the top, and I'm just like I just had to lay down, and it was the hottest point of the day when we got
Yeah.
up there too, so it was hot, and I just had to lay there for a while just to stop, like, the shakiness because I knew I shouldn't go down the cables if I was feeling shaky, so,
For sure.
yeah, it
It's
was.
interesting. I've read that the biggest issue with that climb is fear of falling. And I noted that when they say that, it's not falling, it's fear of falling. I'm just curious from somebody that's actually done it.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a mental game to get through that, but, again, the other part of it is like, "Well, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna
Yeah.
sit up here? Like,
Yeah.
I have no choice but to get down, so
Yeah.
put on your big girl pants." And I anyone watching me is probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, is she gonna make it down?" Because it's like literally like at each slat, I would have to like stop
Yeah.
and rest for a little while to like
Yeah.
get the shaky legs under control. And looking back on it now, I'm like, honestly, it probably wasn't. It was much more of a big deal in my head in the
Yeah.
moment because I had all that fear running through me in the moment.
Yeah. How proud of himself was your son?
It was amazing. He actually had people clapping for him because he was
Yeah.
the only kid that we saw that day. So it was like when he came down and when he was going up to like so many people like, "That's so awesome that you're out doing this. You're such an amazing kid." And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was great to see him do that. And the boundless energy of youth. We were, approaching that last 2 miles back to the truck and he was running down the trail.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? I am dying. I've had my
I'm
second
I'm
dose of
I might have
ibuprofen.
been too. Having come down from Half Dome, I'd probably be like, "Oh," feeling this relief, like, "All
Yes.
right, let's go. Now I can do anything."
Yeah.
All right. One more, because it's on my list, and I love this, Angel's Landing in Zion. You got
Mhm.
to do that one too. Tell me about that one.
Yes, I did that one in 2021, and I did it as a solo hike. So everyone up there like had partners or someone to be with, and then they're like, "Oh, you want me to take a picture of you and your friend?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm actually not with them. Like we were just happened to be climbing up
Yeah.
at the same time." So it was definitely a, you know what, let's see what I can do. I did that before Half Dome. So this is kind of the big, like, I've never done anything like this before. Let's see what I'm made of here. And this was right before they had started the permit system, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. It was kind of like we got there to the area and I'm like, I want to do this. I
Yeah.
think I can do this. And so we got up really early. My husband and sons dropped me off at the trailhead and they hung out at the visitor center while I did this adventure. And it was actually, I had a lot less fear on this one, which is why it probably gave me the confidence thinking I
Yeah.
could handle Half Dome without any problems. Because um, I had no, I didn't have any fear on that one. It is different from Half Dome because I feel like the rocks weren't as slippery. There was definitely a few sections that felt like there was a lot of sand over the rocks, but in those points, like I have no shame. Like I will get down on my bum and I will scooch myself, through this area versus trying to walk. And versus you can't do something like that on Half Dome. So you can really, if you need to, you can lower your center of gravity and crab walk even down a couple of these areas that because there was more sections without chains that surprised me. You see like all like the famous areas on Angel's Landing that people are, holding onto the chains with the little drop offs, but there's quite a few areas that don't have chains.
Mhm.
And they're still like, if you slip and go tumbling, you're gonna die. You're gonna go right off the edge, and there's no chains here for you to hold on to. So those were the areas where I left my dignity behind and got down on my rear end and scooched
Love
my
it.
way forward.
Love it. Yeah. Both. Thanks for sharing for both of those, because I will get to both of those at some point, and I love hearing the story, and I hope that listeners enjoyed that as well. I just want to come back to the family piece. Again, kind of where we started. I think that a lot of people might look at you and your family and what you guys did and say, I could never do that. I have, my kids are, unique. They have special needs, or they have, or, jobs or whatever, like reasons why they can't do that. And I wonder if you could just, because like what I noticed is like for you, I mean, in 2020, this was like, it almost seems like it wasn't a choice. It's like, we have to do this. And I
Yeah.
just wonder like what advice you would have for people that feel like, this is something that they can't do for whatever variety of reasons.
Yeah, if you were to like look at us on paper, you wouldn't think that we would be a family that travels. We've got a lot of kids. Our When we started traveling, our kids were still very young. We have special needs in our family. We are not a wealthy family, but actually for large families, I think camping is actually one of the cheapest things you can do for vacations. We had so many wonderful trips with Walmart gear shoved into our minivan and strapped to the roof. And like I said earlier, once we got our truck, that opened up some more areas to us, especially the dispersed camping area. And I know not a lot of people live in areas where you can just go out into the middle of nowhere and camp. We are very blessed with that out west to have all of our public lands. But you can cook your own food out there. So it wasn't like anything extra that we had to purchase for food. It was just our normal groceries from home that we would bring with us. And so many activities out in nature are free or they're very low cost, just the cost of a pass. You can get an annual park pass or a state park pass. You have like a Forest Service pass that will let you park at trailheads. And then for Christmas, for birthdays, we would ask for camping gear. Or when we wanted to save up for something nice, one year for the whole year, for everyone's birthdays and for Christmas, we asked our family to give us REI gift cards.
Nice.
And so we saved up all those REI gift cards to purchase some of the nicer gear that we have grown into now. And then for families with special need kids, this is really going to, have a lot of variety because there's such a huge spectrum of what you can get into with special needs. But for us, the benefits of getting outside, especially again, where we could just access these dispersed camping areas and didn't have to worry about other people, outweighed the difficulties. We did know our limits. I had one kid who was a runner as a little guy. So we had one summer where I put bells on him so I could more
Love
easily.
it.
Yep, yeah, he
That's
had
great.
bells on him. And
Nice.
we didn't go near any water because
Nice.
I knew that I couldn't trust it. That's
Yeah.
just too big of a risk.
Yeah.
So, you have to know kind of your limits and everything. And also just start small. Day trips. You can do so much in a day and then go back and sleep in your own bed at night.
Yeah.
We also built fun traditions into the activities that we wanted to do. We have a donut tradition now. So, whenever we visit a new city and we do a hard hike, we go to whatever local donut shop. So
Nice. I
we
like
we have visited donut shops across a good chunk of
Can
the
can you
US.
can you shout out, like, a favorite donut shop somewhere in the country?
Um, Pink Buck Donuts in St. George. I know they have like a location in Zion too. So Pink
Nice.
Box Donuts. We actually go to Southern Utah a lot.
Okay.
And I think my kids would mutiny if we went through that area and did not stop at
Nice.
that donut
I love
shop.
that tradition. That's super fun.
Yeah.
So, Lauren, when you kind of reflect back, we're now 2024, we're almost 4 years. I'm curious, like, for you personally, what have over the last 4 years, what have you learned about yourself in all of this adventure experience?
I think I have learned that nothing is making me happier than being outside in nature with my favorite people. I am now in the stage of life where I have 2 more summers before my sons start leaving.
Mm,
This last summer, we had travel plans every single week of the summer except for the 3 that I had to go in and get my work hours in.
yeah.
And I see time slipping away too quickly. And I want to cram in as many experiences and adventures before they start leaving and they begin their own adventures. We've kept up the goal of hiking 100 miles a year, and we're closing in on 700 miles.
It's
And so
awesome.
now we have a new goal that I hike 1,000 miles with my kids before they leave home.
I love it.
Yeah, and I just get restless. We live in a valley, and if I have been in the valley too long, I can feel it. I have just that restlessness in me. Now, luckily, I can, drive an hour and be over at the ocean. That's a really great calming place for me. I can in the summertime, I can easily get up into the mountains pretty quick. But I need a plan for a trip. I always have to have something planned to look forward to, especially in the spring because Oregon has such gray winters.
Mm,
I need a spring break trip to somewhere. We've done Southern Utah, Arizona. We did Palm Springs this last year. I need to get to somewhere where I can get sunshine and blue skies and get out of Oregon come March. And I think you could say that I have nature FOMO because like I am so aware of how much I haven't seen and I
yeah.
just want to get everywhere and I want to see it and I want to have it happen right now and I
Yeah.
don't want to be patient and save up money for trips. Like I just want it now. I want
I
to see it
feel you.
all.
I feel you. So you have started sharing your journey and your adventures with people through social media at Your Adventures. Do you want to
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we started that page in 2022 and we wanted to be able to show traveling and adventuring with families because again like I have made great friends and lots of creators on social media who are doing similar things, but no one that looks like us. No one that's doing all of this with a ton of kids hauling them along, or, they still have a regular 9 to 5 job and they're having to balance all of that as
Yeah.
well. So I wanted to show people like the benefits of getting your kids outside. And it has been really amazing. Probably one of my proudest moments with social media is that there was a woman who followed us on TikTok, and she saw my videos about a Via Ferrata course, a
Yeah.
climbing course that my son and I did in Kentucky. And she was like, "That looks amazing." She's like, "It would be so fun for me to go do that with my son." And they ended up going and doing it because of the posts that I did. And then she
Cool.
told me later, she's like, "That was such an incredible bonding
Yes.
experience
Love it.
with my son." And I was like, "Oh, I made a difference. My
Yes,
silly
you did.
social media stuff that I made a difference for
Yes, you
someone."
did. It's amazing. It's so aligned with what we're trying to do here with this podcast. Just encourage people to listen to that voice inside that calls us to adventure and go get outside. And Lauren, you're showing people the way.
Oh, thank you.
I
Yeah.
love it. So it's at Your Adventures, and that's
Yeah.
YOR Adventures.
Yes.
And
So we're on Facebook and TikTok, Instagram. We've got some on YouTube. We're trying to build up more for that. Again, like I don't have the money for fancy camera equipment, and I'm too busy when I'm out there herding my kids to take horizontal video and vertical video at the same time. So,
yeah,
pretty much I'm just taking what I'm posting on social media and throwing it on YouTube for now. But it's definitely an area I want to grow into. And a business goal we have for this next year is building a website.
awesome. Well, I just envision these trips that you guys took, and you driving the Ford F-150, through New York City. And I mean, at some point, Hollywood's going to pick up on this story. And I have a couple of questions, about the movie that they're going to make about your family and you. And I'm kind of wondering, like, with this Ford F-150 driving and the 21-foot trailer, like, is this a comedy? Is it a drama? Like, what kind of movie is this going to be?
I don't think it could be anything but a comedy. Like we joke like we're the family traveling circus.
Okay,
When we
so
get to a spot and all these kids start piling out of a car, like it's a comedy for sure.
I love it. Who's going to be the actress that plays you in your movie?
All right, I had to think real hard on this one. I had to crowdsource with some friends here for this one. Um, and maybe I'm showing my age a little bit, but I'm thinking Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
That's what
Awesome.
that's what I'm
Love it.
thinking. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Drew Barrymore. All right. What's the movie going to be called?
All right. Again, I'm trying to think like, what can I do? So I was like looking through like catchy movie titles. And as I'm reading through, I'm like, there will be blood. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's really applicable to a bunch of boys traveling together. Like my first aid kit, I got like the little steri strips. Like I have had to like not stitches, but like the little stitching bandages. I've had to do that out on trips. Cheaper by the half dozen. But I'm actually more of a book. I'm more of a bookworm actually, so it's easier for me to think of book titles like How to Raise Your Kids in 1,000 Easy Miles.
Oh, there you go.
There and Back Again, A Mother's Tale.
Oh man, we've got a lot of options here. We're gonna have to throw this up and get some takes. But Drew Barrymore, the movie's gonna be fantastic. I can't wait. And I just want to say thank you so much for spending some time with me today. This has been such a fun conversation.
Thank
And
you.
for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Lauren's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Lauren, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.